welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into a fascinating analysis from historian Heather Cox Richardson that really unpacks a series of political stumbles for Donald Trump and the Republican Party. It's a story that starts with what seemed like a simple plan to win over voters, but wow, it quickly spun out into public infighting and a major strategic retreat. So here's how we're going to break it all down. First, we'll look at the core perception problem that got this whole ball rolling. Then we'll see how the administration's big fix, this nationwide tour, just completely backfired. After that, we'll get into the battles that were raging on Capitol Hill and inside the party itself, all of which led to a pretty surprising last-minute change in strategy. All right, so first things first, why did the White House feel the need to launch a major economic tour in the first place? Well, it all boils down to the numbers. A recent poll showed a perception problem so big, they just couldn't ignore it. A new poll from the Associated Press and NORC really laid the challenge bare. Just 31% of American adults approved of the president's handling of the economy. That means more than 2/3 of the country was basically giving him a failing grade on what's supposed to be his signature issue. And it gets even worse. When you drill down into that crucial group of voters, independents, that number just falls off a cliff. Approval completely craters, dropping all the way down to a mere 15%. And look, this chart really shows you we're not talking about a small gap here. This is a chasm. With independents, he was underwater by a staggering 54 points. Numbers like these are what set off alarm bells in any campaign, and it's this data that really forced the administration's hand. They had to do something. So with those really tough numbers staring them in the face, the administration launched this big nationwide tour. The idea was to go straight to the American people and convince them that Republicans were laser-focused on their biggest worry, lowering costs. On paper, the objective was simple, it was clear, and it was designed to hit those pocketbook concerns head-on. The whole point was to show empathy and talk about affordability. But almost immediately, the president's own words seemed to completely torpedo the tour's mission. Instead of showing empathy for people feeling financial pain, he told a crowd in Pennsylvania that actually they were doing better than they'd ever done before. A bit of a mixed message, right? And it didn't stop there. When he was defending tariffs, which were part of the reason for those higher prices, his advice for anyone feeling the pinch was, well, to just cut back on stuff like pencils or dolls. It was a message that really risked sounding out of touch with the very people the tour was supposed to be winning over. And, this wasn't just some accidental slip-up. The president himself basically bragged to the crowd that he was intentionally going rogue, ignoring the stupid teleprompter that his own chief of staff had set up for him. The pivot away from the economic message just got more intense later that night. A really long social media post completely ignored the whole topic of affordability. Instead, it was all about personal accomplishments, his cognitive test scores, and some pretty intense attacks on the media. The tour's main point was just getting completely lost in the noise. So while the president's tour was going off the rails, another fire was breaking out for the GOP back in Washington. This time, it was a deep, very public fight inside the party over an issue that's always tricky for them: healthcare. Okay, so the core of the fight was about extending Affordable Care Act subsidies. These things help millions of people lower their insurance costs. It's a super popular idea with the public, but Republican leadership in both the House and the Senate wanted to do the exact opposite. So Democrats, they saw an opening and they pounced. They framed the debate around a really clear number, the roughly $350 billion cost over 10 years to keep these direct, popular benefits going for Americans. And then they created this incredibly stark political contrast. They put that number right up against the much, much larger $4 trillion plus price tag of extending the 2017 tax cuts, which, by the way, was a key priority in the GOP's own budget proposal. So here's the key takeaway from that whole battle. As Punchbowl News pointed out, this internal Republican fight forced the party to have a very public argument over what everyone agrees is their worst political issue. It just completely derailed any attempt they had to present a united front on the economy. And you'd think that's enough drama, right? Nope. This pattern of internal conflict wasn't just in Washington. It escalated into an even more intense power struggle, this time playing out hundreds of miles away, at the state level in Indiana. So here's what went down. Worried about keeping control of Congress in the future, the administration launched this all-out pressure campaign to force Indiana's state legislature to redraw its election maps. The goal was pure gerrymandering, to create districts that would be a slam dunk for Republicans. And the threat they leveled against their own Republican state senators was just incredibly blunt. It was basically, do what the president wants, or your entire state will face devastating economic consequences. I mean, wow. And yet, even with all that immense pressure from the very top of their own party, the Indiana Senate rejected the plan. And it wasn't even a close vote. Now, think about what this means. This wasn't just a legislative loss. It was a full-blown rebellion. A majority of the state's Republican senators, 21 of them, defied their own party's national leadership and joined with Democrats to kill the plan. So let's just step back and look at the damage. You've got a misfiring economic tour, total chaos in Congress over healthcare, and a really humiliating failed power play in Indiana. According to the analysis from Heather Cox Richardson, this trifecta of failures basically forced the White House to scrap its plan and change course completely. According to Politico, the new strategy is basically a division of labor. The president himself is being sidelined from that economic message he was struggling with. Instead, key surrogates are now going to carry that message to the wider public, while the president focuses only on firing up his most loyal supporters. This whole strategic pivot is basically a direct admission that the old plan completely failed, acknowledging all the challenges we've just walked through. And it all leads to the big, unanswered question. With the party so visibly divided against itself, can a new message, delivered by entirely new messengers, really be enough to change the narrative?